Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into my official college football top 10 best bets week number 4 edition. Let's kick it off at number 10. It is UAB going on the road to Georgia. We all know Georgia right now sitting 0-3 against the spread, depending on which sportsbook you look at. In some sportsbooks, they're 0-2-1. Either way, they're sitting minus 41, possibly minus 41.5 against UAB. Kind of a weird 7:30 game. I believe the SEC network has this one, and guys, bet this game at your own risk for sure, because 41's an annoying number. What if UAB scores a late touchdown? Personally, the reason this is included, this is the law of averages. Georgia's going to cover one of these spreads at some point. We also have a lot of these times where Georgia, at least once a year against a really bad team, will just shut them out completely. So if that happens, certainly they could easily win 45-0. But even if UAB scores an early field goal or a late touchdown, you could even see a score where it's 52-10. As long as you get 41.5 or under, you've got Georgia covering in that one. It is very annoying, but it's just based off the law of averages. Do we really think that Georgia's going to go 4 straight weeks without covering a spread? I'm not saying Kirby Smart cares about it. I'm just saying law of averages, Georgia, way more talented than UAB. They get a wake-up call last week. They were a different team in the second half. They could come out of the gate first and second quarter and have a game where it's like 38-0 by halftime, and Carson Beck is sitting the entire second half, and you gotta love your chances to cover in a situation like that. Moving to number 9, it is North Carolina at Pitt, and guys, what an amazing setup this is. This reminds me a lot of the situation we had last week with Kansas State and Missouri. Kansas State on the road sitting 5-point favorites. Missouri, they hadn't been good the first 2 games. They had underperformed. Pittsburgh, I think Pittsburgh has moved the ball well in their games. You can say, sure, they're not the greatest team, but it's not like North Carolina has this crazy talent advantage. Yes, Drake May's a good quarterback, but that's only going to take you so far. So I actually like Pittsburgh to win this game outright, but I think the plus 6.5 is a virtual auto lock. Even ESPN FPI, it's not crazy for Pittsburgh to win this game. They've got North Carolina at a 64% chance. It's not like they're at an 80% chance or anything like that. Pittsburgh being at home at night, we've seen this at least once a year with Pittsburgh, where they win these games. They always seem to play 8 o'clock home games. They're going to get this done and win a higher scoring game. Drake May, a lot of passing yards last week, but also the 2 interceptions. At number 8, we've got Georgia Tech traveling to Wake Forest. And guys, Georgia Tech, I loved them last week, plus the 20. The line got bet down all the way to 16. And Lane Kiffin just runs up the score late. That game was a lot closer. I think it finished Ole Miss won 48-23. That's a complete joke. That was a close game. It looked like Georgia Tech was going to cover. This is a good Georgia Tech team. And Wake Forest, they lose Sam Hartman. They play a bunch of cupcakes early. They're 3-0 right now. Oh my goodness. This is the most obvious ever. Georgia Tech wins this game outright. Wake Forest is due for a loss. They should not be undefeated. I understand they're at home. It's a 6:30 slot, but even the ESPN FPI is admitting and saying Wake Forest only a 58% chance to win. That's with the home field advantage baked into it. Georgia Tech this year, they're a new rejuvenated team. They're underrated. They should have covered last week. They're due for a very easy cover, and I think they win this game outright on the road at Wake Forest. Number 7 on my best bets, it is UCLA traveling to Utah. So guys, it just seems like people, because Utah has proven themselves over the past 3 or 4 years under Kyle Whittingham, you know, they've made several Rose Bowls. People are like, ho-hum, Utah's a top 12 team in the country. Guys, they're really not that talented. And no matter who they start at quarterback, you're either getting a very rusty Cam Rising, or you're getting an kind of a, you know, average quarterback at best there. They did bench that Barnes kid, which is probably good. They're going with, I believe, Nate Johnson at this point. But UCLA, it is tough, because if you're starting Dante Moore, a true freshman going on the road in a hostile environment, don't worry about it. Under Chip Kelly's tutelage, Dante Moore, I mean, I think Dante Moore probably, if I was drafting just based off of pure talent right now, I mean, Dante Moore is better than Caleb Williams, folks. And it's off of my expertise and my 12 years of film study on these college quarterbacks, I can understand that Dante Moore is a superstar. I do think it's a lower scoring game. Dante Moore will throw an interception because he's young. It's a raucous environment on the road. But people keep thinking this is the same Utah team because, oh, they've started 3-0 and they've made several Rose Bowls. This is not nearly as talented as of a team. UCLA +5. It's very important. Don't let it go down to 3.5. We want that security where if Utah somehow kicks a game-winning field goal, if you're +5, you still easily cover. That's what we want when it comes to that one. The number 6 best bet, it is Arkansas at LSU. So yeah, I was pretty surprised the over-under in this game was in the 50s. I would have thought maybe 59, 60. I mean, you can say, oh, Arkansas's kind of struggled on offense. They still have KJ Jefferson. We saw LSU and their offensive explosion last week. I will definitely take the over 55.5. I love Arkansas to cover this game. Everyone's in on LSU minus the 18 because of their performance last week. Malik Neighbors, he's probably going to have another huge game. But Arkansas, they're a veteran team. They can score. This is going to be a very high-scoring game early on. Arkansas might get up early. LSU plays catch-up. They end up winning it. But 55.5 in an SEC-type shootout game, I will take the over in that one. Moving on to number 5. It is Miami traveling to Temple, and ladies and gentlemen, it is the perfect scenario. 3:30, there's going to be no juice, there's going to be no crowd. Lincoln Financial Field, the entire upper deck is going to be empty. Most of the lower bowl is going to be empty. No atmosphere. We know Miami, they've had issues getting up for some of these games. They're coming in 24-point favorites. They're coming in ranked. They just beat Bethune-Cookman. This team is sleepwalking. They're not going to take this game against Temple seriously. We will go in on the under 51.5, and I do think Miami ekes out of here with a victory. It's hard to trust Temple to even cover a 24-point spread, but it just seems so unlikely that this is a high-scoring game. You might even get Miami sleepwalking to like a 42-7 victory, and you'll still get the under 51.5. I just don't trust Temple to score very much, and it feels like Miami, they're going to be asleep at the wheel. This is 2 straight weeks now. They're facing a non-threatening opponent because, again, last week it was an FCS team. This week you're on the road in a horrible environment with no energy. You could be looking at some weird score where it's like 10-0, Miami is leading at halftime. You can really take advantage of games like this when it comes to college football because the crowd does have a major effect, especially with a team like Miami who's really not used to a lot of success. They're really going to come in here sleepwalking and they will end up winning. Imagine if this game was at noon. Oh, if this game was at noon, I would take like the under 40 in it, but still, even being at 3:30, I'll take the under. The number 4 best bet, we're going in on another under, so people will be surprised by this one, but this is just a value play. Both of these teams are horrible on offense, and you could say, well, they're both horrible on offense, but they're both horrible on defense. There could be touchdowns scored, by the defense. 49 is just far too big of a number, and I know everyone is looking at that other game, the Iowa State-Oklahoma State game, and laughing and saying it's 36, the over-under is 36. Realistically, this is a game where the over-under should be around 42 or 43 if you look at it analytically. Southern Miss and Arkansas State. Arkansas State lost 73-0. You could say, well, their defense is terrible, but Southern Miss's offense is also horrible. I'll take a weird score like 22-16, but there's great value. Again, the over-under in this game should be in the low 40s. It's probably 49 because both of the defenses are terrible, but when you're talking about 2 bad offenses, you get a few long field goals or, long drives that get stopped in the red zone on 4th down. This game has a 0% chance of going over 49 if we get at least a few red zone turnovers or something weird happens there. The number 3 best bet, it is the over 57.5 UTSA and Tennessee. So I think Tennessee is going to get back on track. I'm guessing they're going to be starting Joe Milton in this one. UTSA this year, really not that good. Not as good as they've been in past years. I would take Tennessee to cover the 20.5, but I don't trust that completely. So I will just take the over 57.5. I mean, Tennessee, for the question marks surrounding them with their receiver position, this feels like the game. Joe Milton's going to start airing it out. You get 2 long touchdowns. You're already well on your way to a 40 or a 50 burger. Tennessee still runs a really high-tempo offense. They completely crushed Florida in the second half last week. Now, Florida did turtle up, but Tennessee still almost had 300 yards of total offense in the second half alone. So this Tennessee team, they can still score. Joe Milton is a veteran. Again, he's got a really strong arm, and UTSA is not very good this year. I believe UTSA allowed Army to score 37 points last week, so it seems like Vegas is really leaving themselves susceptible to allowing a very easy over 57.5 for a game in Knoxville with a high up-tempo Tennessee team, and they're obviously vastly superior in terms of their overall talent. The number 2 best bet, it is UCF going on the road at Kansas State. So I've been off of Kansas State forever. I'm certainly not going to stop now. UCF, unless there's some injury I don't know about, this should be about a 4-point spread. Now, it is 6.5, so I'm kind of nitpicking. That's only a 2.5-point difference, but I do think UCF wins this game outright. And even if they don't, I mean, 6.5 is a lot. Even ESPN FPI is only giving Kansas State around a 58% chance, or, they would make Kansas State around a 3-point favorite. So there's great value in UCF. They've been crushing everyone early on in the season. If they win this game, you're looking at them being ranked, going to 4-0. They've got a tough schedule. The Big 12 is I guess the Big 12 is terrible this year, but still, it is a mosh pit. You're always going to be facing a team that at least is okay every single week. So this is a big game for UCF if they want to have a good record their first year in the Big 12 on the road, a beatable Kansas State team. Again, this is big motivation. If they win this game, they will be ranked. Kansas State limping a little bit coming off that loss on the road to Missouri. I'm not saying Kansas State is this terrible team. It's just UCF's probably a little bit better, and I think there's value in them plus the 6.5. And then the number 1 best bet, it is, I've got to talk about this game for a little bit for sure. It is Ohio State at Notre Dame. So Ohio State coming into this game, and this matchup, I don't think we've seen another scenario that's drastic to the point where this one is, and it's pure talent versus experience. That's what this is. It's Ohio State having a big-time talent advantage, and they do, and Notre Dame having the massive experience advantage overall. Ohio State, when you look at Ohio State's schedule, you're at Michigan, you're versus Penn State, you're at Wisconsin. You kind of need to win this game. I know everyone will say Ohio State can lose this game and still make the playoff, and that's true. But if you lose this game, you're going to have to beat Michigan on the road, Penn State at home. You need this one. You're sitting minus 3.5. Notre Dame, on the other hand, could theoretically lose this game and still make the playoff because they do have a hard schedule, even though they're not going to be in a conference championship. I have thought about going in on the over in this one, 54.5. It is hard to trust that just because of the Kyle McCord situation. There's a few ways to look at Kyle McCord. Him being a good game manager. I mean, we've seen this in years past. Look at Mac Jones. Now, I'm not going to say Kyle McCord is as good as Mac Jones was in college, but if you look at Mac Jones right now in the NFL, he was really propped up by Devontae Smith. If you're Kyle McCord, you can really, in college, because the defense isn't that good, you can put up some crazy numbers while just being kind of a game manager. You have Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, Julian Fleming. I would love to see more of Carnell Tate. I really don't care that he's a true freshman. He's already a beast. He's already probably would be a top 10 receiver in the Big Ten. I'm not kidding. And I just think Kyle McCord, even if he's a game manager, he can still throw for like 400 yards and 5 touchdowns in this game. This is college football. The offenses score a ton of points. So I do think Ohio State against a Notre Dame team where there's questions to me about Notre Dame's defense. And you might say, oh, the defense has been really good. They haven't faced anyone, right? And you could say NC State. I don't really count that. There was weather. We do not know about Notre Dame's defense. You can say Ohio State's defense, we'll see. But Ohio State's defense has so much talent. I really wish Ohio State would start C.J. Hicks. He looks like a Micah Parsons clone. C.J. Hicks is a beast. I don't know why they don't start him. But you're looking at Denzel Burke, who's turned back into a shutdown cornerback. You're looking at some of these other players like JTT and Jack Sawyer finally playing well, both grading out on PFF as the best pass rushers last week in the country, combining for like 13 pressures. And I understand Notre Dame, the quarterback, Sam Hartman, he's been good. But it wasn't like Sam Hartman was this crazy superstar at Wake Forest. I mean, he put up big numbers, but it's not like he's anything world beating. So let's go in on Ohio State here, minus the 3.5. And it is kind of surprising to see Ohio State open minus the 3. And the line does get bet up to 3.5 when pretty much everywhere I've seen, everyone's saying the value is on Notre Dame plus the 3, plus the 3.5. It is a hard game to judge. It's going to be a great one. And we will see. Ohio State just has more pure talent in this one. That doesn't always mean you're going to win. Absolutely not. And Kyle McCord, this is his first big road game, but I do think the Buckeyes cover in that one. Either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.